One more book, Mama.
Welcome to One More Book, Mama, where we read our favorite stories. If you love children's read-alouds, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Today we'll be reading Peter the Picky Polar Bear by Kieshia Chun and illustrated by Charlotte Watkins. Peter was a polar bear. He looked like all the other polar bears. He smelled like all the other polar bears. But he didn't act like all the other polar bears. Peter was picky. He didn't like fish. What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish? A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind. Peter's mommy had tried to get him to eat his fish. "Here's your fish, Peter. Eat it all up, otherwise you'll have no energy to play," she'd tell him.
I don't like fish,
he replied. "What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish?" Peter's mommy asked.
A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind,
he answered. Peter's daddy had tried to get him to eat his fish. "Eat your fish, Peter. It'll make you big and strong."
I don't like fish,
he replied. "What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish?" Peter's daddy asked.
A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind,
he answered. The dinner lady at school, Mrs. Polar Bear, had tried to get Peter to eat his fish. "Eat your fish, Peter. It'll help you to concentrate," she'd tell him.
I don't like fish,
he replied. "Now what kind of polar bear doesn't like fish?" Mrs. Polar Bear asked.
A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind,
he answered. Peter was starting to get hungry. It'd been a whole day and he'd not eaten a single thing. He dragged his giant-sized, heavy paws through the deep white snow, and then, feeling rather sorry for himself, he came across his friend, Percy the penguin. "What's wrong, Peter?" asked Percy inquisitively.
I'm so hungry,
Peter complained.
I haven't eaten a thing all day.
"Why didn't you eat your fish?" Percy asked.
I don't like fish,
he replied. "What kind of polar bear doesn't like fish?" Percy exclaimed.
A Peter kind of polar bear. That's what kind,
Peter answered. "But have you ever even tried it?" Percy asked.
Well, no, but I've seen it and I've already decided that I don't like it.
Peter told him, rather sure of his answer. "How do you know if you haven't tried it?" Percy pried curiously. Peter paused and thought about it for a second or two. Wait a minute, he really hadn't ever tried fish. So how would he know if he didn't try it? It couldn't hurt to try a teeny tiny little piece of fish, could it?
Okay,
Peter agreed.
I'll try it.
Hesitantly, Peter held the fresh fish up to his face. First, he smelt it. Then, he prodded it. Then, he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, opened his big polar bear mouth, and took a tiny bite. After a few chews, Peter slowly opened his eyes and broke into a smile.
I like it,
he exclaimed, eating the rest of the fish so fast that he barely had time to chew it before swallowing. Mummy Bear, Daddy Bear, Mrs. Polar Bear, and Percy were all so pleased that they jumped for joy. From that day on, Peter the Polar Bear never again said that he didn't like something until he tried it first. Peter was now most definitely the kind of polar bear who liked fish. Friends, is there a food that you didn't like, but then once you tried it, you did? Tell me about it on Instagram or Facebook. Subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. See you next week.
I'm a book mama.